limitations. Imagine being diagnosed with a serious condition at 2 weeks old. And then throughout most of your life, you had to have several surgeries. And all of these surgeries and this condition impacts your brain. Sounds scary, right? And it sounds like if you were this person, that you might actually feel like, what's the purpose of living? How can I live life living with this kind of condition? Well, my guest, Jeff Pearson, is this person who was diagnosed with hydrocephalus at 2 weeks old and had to have several surgeries throughout his life in order to remain and stay alive. And his approach and attitude toward living with this invisible condition is amazing. To receive inspiration and hope and courage, I invite you to tune into this week's episode. I'll begin with the quote, as I normally do. And the quote was provided by Jeff himself, and it's one that I use all the time. So, of course, I love it. And that quote is, "Your attitude is the only thing that you have 100% control over." Let's start by just having you introduce yourself in your own words.
I appreciate it. This is great. My name is Jeff Pearson. I live in Colorado Springs, Colorado with my family. My wife and I have been married June 19th. It'll be 25 years.
Congrats.
We've got three beautiful children. Elizabeth is 20, Nick is 17, and Kacia, our youngest daughter, is 15 and just got her permit. Yikes. Yeah. So it's a busy household. It's a busy life. It's crazy. I have a nonprofit that my wife and I run together called Hydro with Hope, which is a nonprofit that focuses on people living with a condition called hydrocephalus, which is what I was born with. We can talk about that in a minute. And then I also host a TV show, which you were an amazing guest on,
Thank you.
called Invisible Condition, where we talk to people that are living and yet thriving with conditions that you can't see from the outside, but are nonetheless real. And then organizations that are helping that population thrive. So it's been, and we've been on the air a little over a year now. So it's been pretty cool.
Congratulations. So, yeah, so tell us a little bit about this disease that you were born with.
Hydrocephalus is a condition, but hydrocephalus is a crazy thing. And it is ridiculously common. I know a lot of people haven't heard that word before. They're like, hydro what? I don't know what that is. I was born with it at 2 weeks old. In my case, one of my ventricles, the brain is always producing cerebral spinal fluid. It produces about a quart a day. It's always making it. And there's this continuous flow from the brain down the ventricles that are inside the brain, and it drains right down the spinal column, reabsorbs. It's this continuous process. One of mine was blocked. And so it was not flowing the way it should have. So they, at 2 weeks old, did brain surgery, my first of 7 brain surgeries in my life. And so that entails drilling a hole in the skull, threading that little catheter through there to access the fluid, attaching a shunt to it, which is right here, and then attaching a cord to that. And that kind of reroutes the fluid to reabsorb into the body. What the ventricles do naturally, but this is just an artificial workaround. And so that was the start of life for me at 2 weeks old, was brain surgery. And
That what a way
makes life
to
interesting,
come in.
right?
So, how was your life then impacted as a child and a young man? Were you able to still do the things that other kids were able to do?
I, of course, with a life-saving mechanical device implanted in my brain, there were some things that were discouraged, I'll say, like football, soccer, things where you bang your head against a lot of things was greatly encouraged to avoid those things. But my parents were absolutely incredible because I never knew I was sick. Like I knew I knew I had this thing in my head or whatever, but they were like, football, oh, you know what? How about band or soccer? I don't know. How about choir? They would just kind
Yeah.
of redirect me. They never said, no, you can't do that because you have this condition. No, you're sick.
Mhm.
No, you're whatever. It was always, okay, let's try this. okay, how about this? They were amazing at pointing out what I can do and not focusing on what I couldn't do.
That is
So
amazing.
I firmly believe that my parents' positive approach to what I was going through has carried me, I mean, through so much. It's
Yeah. So
started so young.
I have to ask this question then, because this is obviously masks off and it's about removing the masks and being more of our true selves and showing up
Yeah.
authentically in the world. So, was there any, whether it came from peers or anywhere else, was there any point in time when you felt that you couldn't be your true self because of this condition or anything else? Do you have a story where you felt that you couldn't be your true self in the world as a kid, and so therefore overcompensated in some way, and then started to wear the mask of perfection or a mask of people pleasing?
I started to experience some side effects, shall we say, from the surgeries, because it's the brain, right? You go
Mm.
poking around in the brain and it doesn't like that. And so it will leave you with some nasty side effects sometimes. And the one in particular that applies to what you just asked is in 2021, my most recent brain surgery left me with, shall we say, large motor tics, which we have figured out how to alleviate most of the time now. But at the time, for about 2 years, it was that's what I was doing. It was, and so as you can imagine,
Yeah.
I'm a business owner. I'm out there with people. I'm hosting a TV show, doing all the things, and I've got this tick. And sometimes it was worse than others, of course, but I would try to suppress it, which with a tick that's
Mm.
happening, that your brain is causing to happen, is useless. It is not gonna, it is a futile exercise to try to suppress that. And because I didn't want it to get in the way. And then a really honestly, we joined a business organization a couple of years ago that's been absolutely amazing for growing Hydro with Hope, and introduced me to the person that helped me get on the air with the TV show. So it's a great organization. But the leader of that organization, his name's Rob, and he told me one time, he goes, he lives with an invisible condition too, and he goes, what's wrong with you? Why are you hiding that? It's your
Mm.
badge of honor. Roll with it, baby. Just, if people don't want to deal with it, let them go away. Let them leave. It's you. Let just be you, man. Don't worry about it. And he, because of the nature of his condition, it struck me. I was like, oh, yeah, that's dumb. What am I doing? So
Yeah.
yeah, I just cut loose, and yeah, people stared and people looked at me funny. And I worked at a school at the time, part time, and the kids, like, some of them would imitate me, and I knew it was all
Mm.
just in clean fun, but it was like, okay, all right, so this is where we're at.
Yeah. And was there ever a feeling or a thought of what's wrong with me? Because that is something
Oh,
that we,
sure.
yeah. You want to
Yeah,
talk about that a little bit?
totally. Yeah, with the ticks, it was so frustrating to that I didn't even feel right driving some days. Don't worry, I'm not, but yeah, it sometimes you just, it's frustrating because you know that you should be able to do certain things.
Mm.
And because I was able to for the last
Yeah.
4 decades, I was fine. I was great. I never had the other surgeries and all the other things that were going on to up until age 36 was great. It was like surgery, move on. Great. Everything's cool. Nothing hindered me at all. And then these
Mm.
surgeries, it's been such a different experience. And so it's been very humbling and frustrating sometimes to say, okay, I used to be able to do that a lot more easily. Why can't I do that anymore?
Yeah. And you said a key word there. I heard you say that you should be able to do what you used to do beforehand. You should be able to do it now. And that's often when we should on ourselves. That's a key warning sign, trigger that we are being extra hard on ourselves. We are not being gentle. We're not giving ourselves grace. We're expecting something to be different and expecting it to be other than what it is. And so
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
it's true. And I will say that, yeah, there was a lot of realizations like that over the last 10 years with the different. I had two brain surgeries back to back within 24 hours in
Mm.
2014, and then I had one in 18 and I had one in 21, and every single one of them came with a new normal. And it was like, okay, so now this is how life is. And yeah, I over the last 10 years, I've learned a lot about letting go of expectations of what you think should be going on, because it doesn't matter. What you think should be is second to what
Is.
is, and really your body will tell you exactly what is.
Okay, I love this
So,
conversation because we're going full circle with the quote, right? Your attitude is the only thing you have 100% control over. That's how we
yeah.
started the conversation. And whether we're talking about an invisible condition, whether we're talking about any other health issue we may have, whether we're talking about our financial situation, our marital situation, maybe we have a child with special needs, whatever the situation is, what I hear you saying is the process that you had to go through and continue to work on going through is coming into that acceptance of what is, which is so
Oh,
freaking
yeah.
hard to do. So, can you share with us how you take yourself through? And I'm sure you're in and out of that acceptance, but it sounds like you, over the years, have done a pretty good job.
Yeah, thanks. I tell you what, starting from about fourth grade on, man, it was adaptability is the name of the game, man. So,
Mm.
like in fourth grade, I had my second eye surgery that basically said I can't use my eyes together anymore. So they work. I can still see out of both of them, but I can't use them together. They can't converge. They can't do the thing like that. So I'm either looking out of my right eye or I'm looking out of my left, but I can't look out of both. So that I had. So in fourth grade, you're still learning how to do a lot of things visually and do a lot, like depth perception was a thing. And now what's the new thing now it's okay, now we got to adjust with what's going on with your eyes. Okay, all right. And of course that was over 40 years ago. We've adjusted. Same thing in 2014. I mean, I had two brain surgeries back to back within 24 hours because of a bacterial infection in the cerebral spinal fluid. And so after that, I had one solid year of nonstop migraines. Talk about adaptability.
Mm. Yeah.
Nonstop migraines 24/7. And so you adjust your expectations. It's okay. Okay, I can barely work with this. I got to figure out how much I can do, how much I can't do, and how much I have to rest. Because if I do too much, then I'm really in trouble. And thankfully, we found a couple therapies, non-medical therapies, which is the reason I'm even sitting here before you, not reeling with a migraine. But we were able to get rid of them. But
What did you use? Just out of curiosity.
so two things. I found a chiropractic neurologist of all things.
Mm,
Who's heard of that? He's the only chiropractic neurologist in the state of Colorado, which and he's 10 minutes away. Like,
that's amazing.
who could be, this is awesome. And he helped with the frequency and severity of those headaches a lot. He cut it in half, I'd say. And then we found another place that did something called neurofeedback, which is where they attach little leads to your head, and there's 21 centers in the brain that do specific things. Like up here is cognitive thought, back here is short-term memory, there's all these different pieces of your brain that do certain things. And so they have leads and they put them on your head two at a time, and just send electrical with low wave electric waves or something through it, and
Yep.
it evens you out a little bit. And that within a month, those migraines were gone.
Wow.
I couldn't even believe it. I was like, this is amazing. So I like to say that traditional medicine kept me alive. Surgery, I wouldn't be here without good neurosurgeons. Traditional medicine kept me alive, but alternative things gave me my life back. So
Mm.
I've that's part of that launch and a mentality. You know, okay, things didn't go the way you thought of that they should have gone. You had to have brain surgery, and then you had migraines for a year. Okay, what do we do with that? Do you sit in bed and cry yourself to sleep every night because you have headaches? Okay, yeah, for a little while, because you don't know what else to do. But when you know something else to do, it's in your hands again. And so during that year, there was an attitude adjustment that had to happen.
I
You
was just
know,
going to ask you that. That was my question was
yeah,
we're talking about your attitude is the only thing you have 100% control over. And you showed how you had to adapt each and every time that you had a
yeah.
new surgery. But I was curious, and maybe you can even, if you have more to add on it, was like, okay, what's the nuances there of the process in between? Like you said, for a while, yeah, you cried. You're like, oh my
It
God, this
sucks. Yeah.
really sucks. And
Yeah.
then what do you remember something within you coming up that made you transition and pivot and say, okay, done crying. Now we're going to go and take action.
Yeah, I do. There was one thing. We went to the neurosurgeon. Of course, he's the one that did the last you took the thing out of my head that wasn't working and put the one in that was.
Mm.
I'm going to ask you, what can we do about these headaches, doc? But what he said to me, and I quote, is, I guess you're just going to have to live with headaches. And I said, and my wife and I were both in that appointment. And on the way home from that, we said, no, I don't think so.
Mm.
I can't just accept that. I just can't. I think this was about 6 or 8 months in. We had gone back to him more than once, trying to figure out what the heck was going on with these headaches. And when he said that, both my wife and I were like, nope,
Yeah. So you
no,
knew that was a defining moment for you
yeah,
that you
we
had
got
to
to.
figure
We're going to
something
do
else out.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to do something. And so we started searching. And so it took us a few months to find the chiropractic neurologist and the neurofeedback. But it's, yeah, we tried all kinds of other things. The catalyst was him saying, I guess you're just going to have to live with headaches. And me saying, no, I don't accept that.
It was the resistance
Yes.
that said, okay, no, I have to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
So what I really love about this conversation and how to tie this in for the listeners as to how this all relates to the podcast itself is that while we're not specifically talking about people pleasing and perfectionism, which of course, if there's anything you want to share, by all means do,
Oh, I will.
but there's this other component. There's this other component of what we've been talking about is expectations. And expectations is often the problem when we have people pleasing and perfectionistic tendencies, because we have an expectation that we should be doing this. We have an expectation that our lives should be going this way. And when they're not, we often will blame ourselves, number one, or blame someone else. We'll go into that blame, judgment, criticism place, or we will often, if we go into this place of expectations, feel powerless.
Yeah.
And that's what I talk about a lot on my podcast. And that's this connection that I'm feeling in this conversation is how even when a person wears a people pleasing or perfectionistic mask, there's a sense of powerlessness.
Yeah.
And that really it's about going inward and doing the work and figuring out what can I do differently? What different
Yeah.
actions? It's a mindset. I believe there's two things. I believe there's inner child healing, there's healing that we have to do, and there's mindset
Yeah.
shifting. And what we're talking about is this mindset shifting. You could have stayed in bed with your headaches. You could have maybe, I know you weren't willing to accept the headaches, but maybe some people do and say, this is my lot in life. I've been dealt lemons instead of lemonade, and just
Yeah.
accept that. And then woe is me for the rest of eternity, rest of
Yeah.
time. Thoughts?
Yeah. That's never been me. That goes back to my parents. It was never a thing to just complain. Like complaining was useless.
Mm,
No. Okay, now what? I'll listen to you complain for a couple minutes, but now what are we going to do? What are
mm,
we going to do about it? Because you still have control over you. Even with the most recent surgery, the most recent one in 2021, it was October of 21, and they did the surgery, and then I found out that I had the large motor tics, and also this was the other fun thing, that filter that's built into everybody's brain that most people don't even think about because it's so automatic. When you're in a crowd, when you're in, maybe you're in a church lobby, maybe you're at a football game, maybe you're at the supermarket, and there's all these people milling around you, but you don't hear all the conversations. It's white noise, and you're able to concentrate, like you're talking with the person that you're there with, and you're having this conversation, and all the rest of it's just kind of white noise. Your brain automatically blocks that out. That filter was gone after that surgery. So I had no filter. I couldn't go into big settings like that because my brain would try to pick up every single thing. And it tried. And of course it didn't work, but it was so exhausting. And so I would literally almost fall over from exhaustion being in there for more than a few minutes, and I'd have to get the heck out of there. But again, expectation and attitude towards it is okay. Now I watch church from home. I don't always go in there. Or now I go to the store, I store up the energy, I nap for a little bit, and then I run into the store real quick, and then I leave. And so you launch and adjust. But that you got to have realistic expectations of yourself and of the environment that you're going into. You can't, with that particular thing going on, I couldn't possibly go into the supermarket that's busy at 5 o'clock in the afternoon with everybody there and be mad because there's so much noise. Hello. You chose to go at the worst possible time with so many people there. Don't get mad at them. They don't know your story. So it's on you to adapt that scenario to maybe you go at 10 o'clock that night when nobody's there. I don't know if this is because of the first brain surgery. I don't know if it's because of subsequent surgeries or if it's just part of built into Jeff's brain. I don't know. But OCD has been a thing for me as long as I can remember. And in recent years, it's gotten really interesting. It's gotten really interesting. And I think the brain surgeries have probably maybe amplified it, but the thing where you check the doors all the time, right? You're always checking the doors. Is that locked? Did I lock that? Did I lock that one? Did I lock that one? And you're walking through.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And I remember when we talked the last time, you said to me that you have this tendency to have things just right. And that is a flavor or a layer of the perfectionism for sure. So what you're naming is that by having all the doors locked and things, you have to have things just right, and while there are many facets to perfectionism, that is definitely one. So for sure.
They call it just right OCD. Yeah. But the perfectionism thing, I guess that comes in too with the TV show. When we launched the TV show, I wanted, we create the graphics we sent you the graphics to push out on social media to say, hey, the show's coming up. It's got your picture and the time and the title of the show and all the different things. When I create those, I want them to be perfect. Like I create them in Canva and you can see the measurements about how far apart things are and for a long time, I would do those because I thought I don't want to pass it off to somebody else. I don't want it to be wrong, right?
Wrong,
I don't want it,
as if there's a right.
I don't want it to look weird. Recently though, as the nonprofit has picked up steam, picked up speed and stuff, and the TV show has started to take off a little more, I don't have time for all of that stuff. So I've got a lot of speaking gigs this year. We're going on a lot more trips out of town for different things for business. So we turned a lot of that stuff over to a virtual assistant, which was really hard at first. Because of that OCD. It was like that they would send me the graphics or we'd share a Google folder or whatever, and you go in there and look what they designed. And I was like,
cringing. And that's a beautiful example of where a person can go with perfectionistic tendencies.
Oh man.
To let go of control, to have things just right, that all or nothing. That's what you named, all of those things. So I love that you shared that. But I just want to really, as we round out the conversation, I really want to say that I myself, just from the conversation we were having about how you have chosen to move through and handle this invisible condition with what I can see as such grace. And I'm sure it wasn't always, but I just feel there's really a lot of inspiration in you sharing your story. And that you, even if you did for a millisecond fall into victimhood, you didn't stay there and you did what it took to take necessary action and steps so that you could as you said, you change your attitude, be adaptable, because that is the only thing that you have 100% control over. So I just really wanted to call that out. I wanted to thank you for that. It was awesome. And I feel that it's very inspiring. And for any listener that's out there that may have any kind of situation, as we mentioned before, that this is a new way, a new perspective of possibly looking at their current situation.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that perspective, when I was in the hospital in 2014, I was in there for almost 3 weeks. I was in there for 20 days, but I couldn't go anywhere because of the nature of what they were doing. I was connected to all this equipment and stuff, and I could get out of bed and walk around and walk the halls and stuff, but I couldn't leave the floor. And after about a week, I was going stir crazy and I was starting to complain. Why am I still here? And my dad totally called me out. He's, look, dude, they are here to help you. All these amazing people, that all these amazing medical staff and doctors and nurses and PAs and all the CNAs and everybody, they're here to help you. So suck it up, man. You're here for a reason. And it might not necessarily be just for the surgery. You can have a negative impact on them, or you could have a positive impact on them. It's your choice. And so I so admire my dad, and he is a successful person in so many areas. I strive to be like him in so many areas of life. But so he told me that, and it hit me like a hammer between the eyes. And I was like, okay. All right. So by the end of that visit, I had started writing down everybody's name that helped me, even if it was the person changing the sheets on the bed. And I would write it all down. And this was all because of what he said. It was nothing to me, nothing to do with me. It was all about what he called me out on. And so I wrote down, and I probably had 200 names by the end of that 3 weeks. As you can imagine, it's a long time to be in a hospital. And when I was leaving, before I left, I wrote every single person's name on the big whiteboard, you know, and wrote thank you on it real big, and put every single person's name on there. And then just left. I didn't draw any attention to it. I didn't want to be that guy. I wasn't like, hey, everybody. No, I wanted to just do that. And it was more about me doing right by my dad and what he said than drawing attention to myself. But I was like, okay, I get it, Dad. I get it.
Yeah.
It was good realization. And I've carried that through, like, for the future surgeries. And it's just, it's a shift in mindset for that.
It's such a beautiful story to end with. So tell us where people can find you. I know there's a couple of places. If someone wants to find out more, even about your invisible condition, your TV show, what's your website, where can they find you?
So yeah, thank you. So the easiest way to find me is to go, so for Hydro with Hope, if you want to find out about the nonprofit, you can go to hydrowithhope.com. And that there is a very easy place to donate there. There's really cool resources in there. That we've created a journal to help people with the condition, which I would really like to read just a small, tiny two little lines out of it before we go, because it's a perfect recap for everything. And so and then I'm also doing helping families move through this whole experience, like with Zoom calls and stuff. And speaking as well. I love speaking to audiences and making sure they know that brain surgery is not the end. And so that's our nonprofit. So Jeff at hydrowithhope.com is a good email to reach out to me there. And then our TV show is called Invisible Condition. And you were an amazing guest on that show. If everybody wants to go check it out, you can go find her episode.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah. And the show is about, we talk to amazing individuals who are living and yet thriving despite living with an invisible condition that you can't see, like hydrocephalus, like people pleasing, or OCD, schizophrenia, or ADHD, or POTS, or lupus, or all kinds of stuff. And then also those organizations that are out there around the world that are helping that population thrive. So we're on twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And we're an hour-long show, and it's been absolutely amazing meeting all these great people that we've got to meet, and having all these resources now that we've got for people that need them.
Yeah, awesome. So share with us the couple of lines that you want to read.
So this is where I have the couple of lines from. This is our journal. It's called My Hydro Warrior Story. And so in the about, there's an introduction and a forward. My parents wrote the forward, which I'm very excited
Aw.
about. And but there's a part in there that says about Jeff, kind of like, why, who is this guy? Why is he writing this journal? And so there's this one little spot at the bottom of the page, and I'm going to just read it real quick. It encapsulates so much with anybody with any kind of condition, with any kind of perfectionism, or with anything that you are dealing with. This could apply. So it says, having lived with hydrocephalus for over 45 years, I can say three things with 100% certainty. Number one, God is faithful all the time. Number two, God is in control, and that's a good thing. And number three, last but not least, life doesn't have to be perfect to be amazing. So
Oh my goodness.
there you go.
There you have it, folks. Life does not have to be perfect to be amazing. And just thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on and sharing your story and your inspiration and your hope and all the work that you're doing in the world. So thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to share, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I'm Kim Gross, your host, and I will see you next time.